Part 2, Section 3 of the Autobiography of Cockney Tom. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Anne Boulay. The Autobiography of Cockney Tom by Thomas Bastard. Part 2, Section 3. A day or two later I was destined to witness a painful sight, which depressed my spirits for several days afterwards. As I was going home to my tent, I saw a crowd of diggers walking three abreast, and carrying in front what seemed a sailor's chest. It looked very much like a rollicking party of drunken fellows bent on some bacchanalian festival. Some were smoking, while others were indulging in coarse jokes and loose conversation, and it was quite evident to me that most of them were very much under the influence of drink. When I came to the party I naturally inquired what was the matter. "Oh, nothing particular. It's only a digger that has been found dead in his tent. He was bad for some time, and his mates have got permission from the police to bury him." "Has he no relations with him?" I inquired. "None that are known. Nobody even knows his real name. He is called Bill the Sailor." I followed them to a place leading up to the mount, where they stopped, let down the box by the side of a hole about 3 feet deep, and tried to get the box in. But the hole was not big enough, and they had to set to work digging until it was the proper size. At last they managed to get the box down, and when fairly in the hole it was about 2 feet below the surface. They shoveled the earth over the poor fellow, who was buried like a dog, without a word of prayer, but not without a certain amount of jesting and rude remarks, which nearly made me commit myself. My feelings were harrowed up to such a pitch at this exhibition of the demoralizing influence of gold digging, that I felt almost ready to exhort them to think of their own latter end, but on thinking the matter over, I decided that it would be better not to do so, but offered a prayer to God in silence instead. When I got back to the hall, Fiddler Jim and a man whom we had better call Mr. Fiddler No. 2, who knew Jim in London, were waiting to see me on business. "What is it to be?" I asked. "Well," said Mr. Fiddler No. 2, "I am sent by Mr. Hitchcock, of Castlemaine, to offer you an engagement for a day and a night, you to sing, and Mr. Fiddler Jim to play the fiddle, with me and a pianist. We don't want much rehearsal, as you understand each other's business. You will have to sing at the opening dinner, for which there are 200 tickets issued, at 2 guineas each, and there is a ball and a concert. It is to celebrate the opening of a large restaurant to dine 300 a day, and they are sparing no expense to get the thing up in all style. Now what do you think would pay you to come down the day before, and go back the next afternoon?" "Well," said I don't think we can do it for less than £5 each, and expenses. What do you think, Jim?" "I should say that is little enough. But mind, we are not going down in a bullock dray. He must send us up a decent trap and a pair of horses." "All right," said Fiddler No. 2, "write out the agreement, and if you are agreeable to the terms, you shall sign it. I will witness it, and I will send it up to you with particulars when you are to come." "All right," I said, "we will come, and now let us have a liquor. Had you not better stop to our show tonight, and go down tomorrow?" "All right," he said, "but I only wish I had brought my fiddle with me." "Never mind that," I said, "we can borrow one for you." We had a very jolly night of it, for bottled ale, porter, and sherry being the order of the band. It was proposed we should have the Huntsman chorus, which we all sang in union with the black man Ashton, and several others, arranging the words as follows: "We will chase the kangaroo, we will chase the kangaroo, through the wild woods we will follow, and we'll chase the kangaroo." No less than 20 times was this repeated, till everyone thought we were mad, and they were not far out in their judgment. The next day we saw our friend Fiddler No. 2 off, but not before we had arranged with him about our benefit. From that time we did very little gold digging. I made the acquaintance of a somewhat intelligent Chinaman, who was cook at the police camp. He was well dressed, and had his hair closely cropped. He drank no beer or spirits, but indulged freely in tobacco smoke. but no opium for him. He used to relate droll stories about his country and their clever tricks, and said for plundering, no nation could beat his at that sort of thing, as their depredations were simply wonderful. They could vie with all creation, and they could live cheaper than any other people. Also, that they were more numerous than any other people, excelled in gambling and cheating, and were the oldest fashioned people on record. In fact, everyone was just simply nobody when compared with the Celestials. John Chinaman completely shut me up. On the following Sunday, Fiddler Jim and I received an invitation to dine on Mount Tarrangower. Mrs. Ashton gave out the invites, and the party consisted of Mr. Blackman and his wife, Mr. New York and his sweetheart, a neighboring digger and his wife, 2 young ladies, one of whom was a dressmaker and the other took in washing, and Mr. and Mrs. Ashton, with 2 kangaroo dogs for hunting. We started at 10 a.m. from the camp on a very hot day, and consequently had to rest and refresh very often, and by the time we reached the top of the mount it was past 1 o'clock. But the magnificent sight rewarded us for all our trouble in getting there. The view is altogether beyond my power to describe. The scenery about Mount Lofty and Adelaide are grand, but Mount Tarrangower eclipses both. We had dinner, prepared by the ladies, and then took a walk. Meet a native with boomerangs under his arms, and the dogs would have bitten him had not Ashton called them off. We asked the native to show us how they used the boomerang, and he did so very cleverly. The next thing to be done was, under orders from the ladies, to get some dry wood and make a campfire. As a matter of course, we instantly obeyed, and on went a billy, which they had brought with them. "Now, you can have a smoke," said Miss Dressmaker. "Yes, till tea is ready," said Miss Washerwoman. "And a nobbler," said Fiddler Jim. "I second that," said Ashton, and it was carried unanimously. After a short stroll we returned to tea, everything being first class, consisting of boiled fowls, ducks, pickles, cakes, etc. After tea we had nobblers all around, the ladies joining in, and then made a start for home, which we reached in half the time it took us to ascend. We were all very tired, and soon got to bed, some to dream, and others to think over the wonderful works of the great Creator. I could not sleep, my thoughts wandering from the Mount to Adelaide, and my wife and children who were waiting to receive me, but eventually I dozed off. I slept until roused for breakfast, after which I went to the post office to see if there were any letters for me. Sure enough, there was one addressed to Cockney Tom and Fiddler Jim, Esquires, National Hotel, Tarrangower. It read as follows: "Dear Sirs, consider yourselves engaged at Castlemaine for Wednesday next. Your terms are accepted, and I shall be there to meet you with carriage and pair. Get everything ready to start, and on our way back we can see the races at Mucklesford. Trusting you are all jolly, believe me, my dear brothers, yours sincerely, Fiddler No. 2. "All right," said Jim. "We must get everything ready, clean white vests, white shirts, neckties, and dress coats." "By George," I said, "our boots are very bad, and we will have to see what we can borrow. We must not look shabby in our carriage." "I believe," said Fiddler Jim, "that I shall be the first of my family who ever rode in a carriage to a £5 engagement." "I can say ditto to that," replied I. We had got everything ready when Wednesday morning arrived, and the carriage and pair, with our friend, Fiddler No. 2, looked mighty big in it. "Give the horses a spell, and let's have a nobbler before we start," I said. "I am quite agreeable," said Fiddler No. 2. "By the by," he said, "do you think I could do anything in the photographic line up here?" "I think you would do well," I said, "as there is a lot of women about, and they are fond of that sort of thing." "I'll think it over," he said. By this time we had got all our luggage in the carriage, ourselves seated, we waved our hands to our friends, and started. Nothing particular occurred on the road. We arrived at Mucklesford and repaired to the racecourse, about a mile off. What a sight it was to see so many people there! "Where did they all come from?" was the general inquiry. "Some from one diggings and some from another," was the reply. Gambling and drinking were all the rage. We saw but one race, they called it a steeplechase, and in that race a jockey, a poor little boy, fell from his horse, broke his arm, and was carried off for dead. We did not stop to see any more races, but drove on and arrived safely at Castlemaine, refreshed ourselves, and got ready for business. We were introduced to lots of people, including our host, Mr. Barnes, who treated us as gentlemen. We then made our program, which he approved of. The dinner was to be on the table at 5 p.m., concert and ball to begin at 9 p.m., and to wind up we set down Sir Roger de Coverley for 4 a.m., I acting as toastmaster, singer, manager, etc. At 5 o'clock the first act commenced with eating and drinking, and corks were soon flying about in all directions. In course of time they got tired of that. Then the chairman rose, he was the commissioner of police stationed there, amid thunders of applause. "Gentlemen," he said, "Dr. Brown will preside at the piano, and a gentleman from London will lead the singing. First I'll give you the Queen." I then sang the solos and the company joined in the choruses, after which several grand speeches were made and songs were sung. I sung several songs and was encored, and then occupied myself in getting others to sing, and so kept them alive. At 9 o'clock sharp, the ladies began to arrive for the ball, and the old adage, that it is not all gold that glitters, had its truth amply proved on this occasion. There were many at that ball who had no proper notion of ballroom etiquette. They had evidently come to see and be seen, just as some people go to places of worship, and in all such cases we must carefully draw the line. There were some present who could not dance at all, and others who attempted and failed. The most amusing part was the women laying their heads together and taking stock of each other's dresses, and the vanity they displayed, some with gold rings on every finger, others with necklaces composed of nuggets of gold, with holes pierced through them, and strung together on a piece of narrow ribbon. The same with their bracelets, and their dresses simply baffled description. Some, however, were there dressed neatly, and not gaudy, which showed at least that they had been respectably brought up, and consequently knew how to behave themselves in company. When the dancing first commenced, very few ladies stood up. We had a walk around, and then a polka, and, more ladies arriving, things began to brighten up a bit. I dressed up for my caricature song, and appeared on stage, which was composed of old cases from a draper's store, one of which not being very firm, gave way and let me fall, to the great amusement of every one. I, however, not being hurt, soon got on my feet again, and as the music began to play, I commenced singing, and the audience laughed right heartily. I had to come on 3 times, and I was all the go with the company for the remainder of the night. We had supper at 1 a.m., and there was any quantity of champagne, all seeming bent on enjoying themselves. Those who could not dance were indulging in a little gambling freak in a back tent, got up for the purpose. The affair was kept up till 4 o'clock in the morning, when a fight was about to take place, but the police interfered, and all made tracks for their tents, not quite sober. I and my mates had royal coffee, and then went to bed at 5 a.m. I slept till past 11, got up refreshed, and had bottled ale and porter, after which we received our pay, and ordered our carriage for 2 o'clock. Fiddler No. 2 resolved to go with us, and try his fortune as photographic artist at Tarrangower. We walked round town, and saw many faces we recognized from the creek. Some of them were doing well, whilst others had not earned their salt. We got back to Mr. Barnes, the landlord of the restaurant, and lunched with him. He was very sanguine of making his fortune, and told us he had a good friend in Mr. Hitchcock, as the restaurant and half the town belonged to him. About 10 years afterwards I met Mr. Barnes in Adelaide. "How do you do?" he said. "You've forgotten me." "I think I have seen your face before," I said, "but I don't remember your name." "Don't you recollect me paying you £5 for singing 5 songs?" "What? Is it Mr. Barnes?" "Yes, Tom, it is I. I was a rich man then, and worth £20,000, and now I am a poor draper's assistant at Mr. Blank's in Rundle Street." "Is it possible?" said Tom. "What is become of Hitchcock?" Ah, poor fellow! He went to law, lost all his property, and now he is as badly off as I am." "You astonish me," cried I. "Come and let us have a drink." "I will with pleasure," and we did so. Since that time we have frequently met, and talked over our experience at the diggings. But to return to Castlemaine. We started at about 3 p.m., stopped once only at Mucklesford, and got back to Tarrangower in time for supper and concert. We spent a very pleasant evening, and got to bed early, tired out, and almost done in. We went out the next morning with Fiddler No. 2, to get a tent for him to start business in, and we got it for 10 shillings per week. Walked down the town, and called in at the saloon, where we saw the proprietor. "When did you get back?" he said. "Last night," said Jim. "I heard that everything went off in first-class style. Our ball comes off next week. It will take the shine out of the Castlemaine people. We have a committee of gentlemen to act as stewards, and no one can get a ticket except through them. No diggers will be allowed in except they wear a silk jumper or dress coat. You bet, they will be very particular as to what ladies they admit. I have been authorized to entrust you with the job of working up the band. Ashton spoke to me about you. He says you understand all about it. Will you undertake to provide the band and superintend the dancing? And then I shall have nothing to do but to look after the eating and drinking department." "What he says I'll agree to," said Jim. "How many in the band?" asked I. "5," said he. "2 fiddlers, piano, cornet, and trombone, but we cannot get them up here." "I'll tell you what we'll do," said I. "I'll engage to provide you with as good a band as we can get, 5 in number, for £50, cash down on the night of the ball." "Too much," said he. "All right," replied I. "There is no harm done. It will cost nearly £20 to get a piano and player over from Bendigo." We then had a drink and left. "We might have done it for 40, said Fiddler Jim. "He will give 50, said Fiddler No. 2. He was right, for in the afternoon I was sent for, and the bargain was struck. We set to work to make the best arrangements we could. There was a pianist at Bendigo who owned a piano, and we wrote to him, offering him £18 to bring his piano and play at the ball. He accepted, and we retained Fiddler No. 2 for £5, with a promise to play for our benefit for nothing. We got a clarinet and cornet player, with triangle, to come for nothing, just to see the fun, and have a good booze. The night of the ball arrived, and with it a great number of people. The band played "God Save the Queen," but no dance music. "When are you going to begin?" asked the proprietor. "When you pay me £50, I replied. "That be blown," he said, "but I'll tell the committee." "All right, we don't play till we get the money, and mind, no checks." He went away, and soon returned with the cash, and paid it down with a bad grace. I gave him a receipt, and ordered the band to play up. Nothing happened to mar the pleasure of the evening until after supper, when a digger ran up against the clerk of the police, who for some offence had got him fined a day or 2 before. "I'll have that fine out of you," he said, and struck him such a violent blow that I thought he was killed. The digger was arrested, and the man was taken into a small tent, where the camp doctor mesmerized him and got him round, and then sent him to the camp to be taken off, and the next day the digger was fined £15 for assault. The ball was kept up till 5 o'clock in the morning, and then, by way of a change, they indulged in skittles and champagne, and how they got to their homes is a mystery. We found our way home, and that is all we knew, except that the Castlemaine ball was the best. The next morning we paid the band people, after which we took a rest, and wished ourselves away at Tarrangower. After thinking the matter over, we decided to stay for our benefit, and take away as much money as we could, and then no more digging or fiddling till we got back to Adelaide. So it was settled to get out our bills at once, and the benefit was arranged to come off on the following Monday. We had a fair house, and everybody seemed sorry we were going. Ashton drove us part of the way to Castlemaine, where we arrived that night, and put up at friend Barnes', where we met several gentlemen, who invited us to the police barracks to play at whist, and they proved very kind to both of us. We left Castlemaine the next morning after breakfast, and met nothing worth recording till we arrived at Sawpit Gully, where we met with some troopers whom we knew at Maryborough. "What, Fiddler Jim, is that you? Where are you bound for?" asked one of the policemen. "For Adelaide, to our wives and children. We have had enough of the diggings," I said. "If it is not a rude question," said Fiddler Jim, "where are you going to?" "Melbourne," he replied. "We are taking down a man to be hanged for murder. He was tried a few weeks back, but you must have heard of it. He nearly killed a poor woman with a stick, and then completed the job by putting her on the fire and burning her to death." "What a beast!" said I. "Where have you locked him up?" "Nowhere," said the policeman. "He is sitting there eating his dinner." "What? That old man? Why, he must be 70 years old at least." "You are not far out, according to his account. He does not think much about it. We let him have what he likes to eat and drink, and we are not to hurry him on the road. He will be there soon enough. We are going to stay here to-night, and you had better stay and keep us company over a hand of cards." "No, thanks. We must be getting to Kyneton to-night, as the landlady expects us, and we must keep our engagement." "Well, if you must go, let us have a liquor first." We did not refuse the drink, and glad we were to get away. Jim remarked that he could not have stopped in the house with a man who had committed a crime like that. I also said that when the police spoke of murder I thought of our two Forest Creek friends, and it would not have surprised me if he had been one of our late mates at Tarrangower. We reached Mrs. Holliday's in time for dinner, had a refresher, and enjoyed our meal, and after a little chat went to bed, slept soundly, and dreamed, not of murders, but of home sweet home. We were up next morning early, and made arrangements with the driver of a conveyance to pick us up on the road. We had to pass through some bad country for horses, but pushed on, were taken up by the coach, and arrived safely at Gisborne. We stopped there that night, and next day got into Melbourne, where all our friends were glad to see us. We put up at our lodgings, and my Catholic friends begged me to stop in Melbourne, but I could not be so persuaded. As the steamer did not leave for several days, I went to work for a warehouseman in a large firm. The principal of the house was a Mr. Montefiore, the original owner of property situated on a hill known by that name in North Adelaide, and I might have stopped there, but preferred going on to Adelaide. While I was there, however, I met with a gentleman from Adelaide, who had heard of my church singing. This gentleman was a church warden, and held a responsible position under government. I was introduced to him, and found him to be a kind-hearted man. He made me promise to call on him when I got back to Adelaide, and fortunately I did not forget, as he turned out to be a good friend to me afterwards. As the time arrived for the steamer to leave, we bade Melbourne and our friends good-bye, took our swags on board, and had a pleasant passage back. There was plenty of fun, as a great many diggers were returning home with lots of gold. But alas! neither I nor Fiddler Jim belonged to that class, so could not join in their merriment with anything like zest. Our pleasure was confined to the knowledge that we were going home to those whom we loved, and who were anxiously awaiting our return, and although we were returning not much better off than when we started, yet we had seen something of the world beyond the ordinary horizon, and hoped at least that we had grown wiser. "What do you advise me to do when I get to Adelaide?" said Jim. "Get a place, and turn dancing master," I said. He did so, and made a lot of money, left Adelaide, and went to Melbourne again, where he did nothing worth mentioning, and died only a poor fiddler. We arrived at last, safe and sound, after being away 5 months. We had acquired much more knowledge than gold, it is true, but in spite of all defeats and failures, there were 2 at least who were thankful for all things, and they were my wife and I. In this short period of 5 months, that completes the second stage of my history. I experienced many adventures and vicissitudes, and had much experience, which, though perhaps not very interesting to the general public, contained many lessons highly interesting to me, and which I have reason to believe acted beneficially upon my subsequent career, and which also I cannot but think tended to give a better tone to the third and last stage of my history, which I am spending in South Australia, where, in spite of all my faults and failings, the Almighty Ruler of events has been pleased to bless me with a much greater measure of prosperity than I am conscious of having ever deserved. End of Part II, Section 3.